Hey, I'm Diane. I'm recording this on the 2-year anniversary of my neck surgery that was done to lessen the pressure that the vertebrae were putting on my spinal cord. I had a posterior cervical laminectomy with fusion. I always have to think about those 4 words, on levels C3 through C7 in November 2019. And I have been recording some videos along my journey, and hey, thank you to everybody who's been watching them. I'm glad that, at least some eyeballs are getting on them, and I hope they're bringing some encouragement to you. That was that's been my desire in doing this, to just kind of chronicle my journey, to tell everyone how I was going through it. And, I'm glad I've been able to really kind of connect with lots of you who've been leaving comments or emailing me or something like that, and then also through the Facebook group. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's been a long time since I've done one. I did one, I think, before the surgery while I was in the hospital, which probably wasn't the best idea. A couple weeks after the surgery, and then I think 3 months after the surgery, and here we are now at the 2-year mark. And I just wanted to give you an update, and I think I can encapsulate it in one word, and that's good. I'm doing really well after the surgery, and honestly, if I were posed with the question of would you do it again, knowing that it was so hard to go through, my answer would unequivocally be yes. So let me tell you why. Prior to the surgery, my symptoms as far as balance and walking and gait issues and so forth really didn't appear until maybe a couple months before I ended up having the surgery, but then they really increased really quickly from that point. I got to the point where I was falling down a lot, really kind of stumbling, losing my balance, and experiencing the robot legs, as they're called. They're definitely a real thing. And I can say without a doubt the surgery has solved those issues. And my surgeon, like many of you who are going through the surgery, you've heard from your surgeon that if you don't do this, you're likely to end up in a wheelchair. And I was told that too. And, I didn't want to face that. And with the hopes that this surgery would fix the problem. And I can say in my case, it definitely has. I would say my balance is probably at like maybe 95, 96%. I had no problems walking in typical circumstances. I went through a round of physical therapy after the surgery, as is, I think, pretty much the norm. And I really did pay attention to a lot of balance issues going through that, and did some specific training and normal walking, everyday life, that kind of stuff as far as balance is concerned is fine. I think maybe there's a couple small circumstances, maybe walking on loose gravel, loose stones, where I have to be really extra careful that I just feel like I could fall at any point, even though I'm probably not. Getting on and off of escalators, and sometimes going downstairs kind of can throw it off for me a little bit too. But other than that, my balance has been fully restored as a result of the surgery, and I'm very grateful for that. Prior to the surgery, most of my symptoms were showing up in my hands. Even like maybe 8 or 9 months prior to when I actually had the surgery, started having a lot of pain in my hands, and then intermittent numbness and tingling, shooting pains and nerves, and really kind of losing my ability to effectively tell my fingers what to do. And I even ended up having a carpal tunnel surgery at one point because the doctor thought maybe perhaps that was an issue. Well, clearly it wasn't, and ended up that the surgery, the MRI that I had before the surgery kind of made it clear what the issue was. I will say my course of action was that I was seeing an orthopedic surgeon prior to that point. The orthopedic surgeon is the one who ordered my MRI, and it became clear what the real issue was, and that it was the vertebrae compressing the spinal cord that was causing my hand issues, and then by that point, the subsequent walking and balance issues. He recommended that I would have the ACDF surgery, the anterior, and I decided to get a second opinion and spoke with a neurosurgeon who, did further tests and checked my MRI. And his assessment was the ACDF would solve the problem in the present, but he really thought that I would probably be back fairly soon, just with my other vertebrae set up. So in my specific circumstance, he said that for me, he would definitely recommend the posterior, and that's the route that I ultimately chose. I do just want to always bring in the caveat that you have to remember that everybody's situation is different. I was born with apparently relatively narrow vertebrae, and at age 50, they decided to go crazy and start squeezing on my spinal cord. I'd had no problems prior to that, and really no other contributing factors. I will say an important thing for community as far as like being able to talk to people who've gone through this. I really encourage you to join a Facebook group where a lot of people who've had this surgery are willing to share their stories and answer your questions and encourage you when you're having some bad days with it. I'm going to put a link to that down in the comments, and I would encourage you to join that with the idea that everybody's situation is different. Everybody has different contributing factors to what is going on. And, you might find some things that are pretty relatively scary in that group, but you might be coming at it from a very different situation. So just always be keeping that in mind when you're communicating with others who've had this surgery, that we all come from different contributing factors to it. So my story will not be exactly like yours. Yours won't be exactly like other people that you'll hear from in the group. So, keep that in mind. But, I do think it's great to just have some people that have gone through this to tell you what it was like. So back to my story. So the neurosurgeon did perform the posterior cervical laminectomy with fusion on me. And here is what the outcome was immediately after the surgery. My hands, I would say, are maybe, I don't know what percentage to put on it. If I had to say that there's one issue that I'm still struggling with after the surgery, it is with my right hand. Immediately when I woke up from the surgery, I was in a great deal of pain, but I could also tell that my middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger on my right hand just weren't right. There was something different about them. And it could very well be because that specific vertebrae that was hitting that specific part of my spinal cord and dealing with that specific part of the nerves down that part of my hand was perhaps more affected, and the longevity of the compression of my spinal cord just contributed to the fact that they are maybe about as good as they're going to be at this point. I am a piano player. I type a lot for my work, and it's a little bit of a pain, but I've learned how to work around it. I just can't seem to tell those fingers what to do very well on some occasions. Just have them function like the other 7 fingers seem to do pretty well. At this point, prior to the surgery, both of my hands were very affected, and I just really had a lot of mobility issues with my fingers. So I would say most of it definitely was restored, and I'm very thankful for that. I actually did go to a hand specialist maybe 6 months ago, just curious as to what they would say about what the situation was with my fingers. And surprisingly enough, the surgeon had that same posterior surgery at I'm not sure what levels. And he definitely agreed that it could just be that the compression was significant enough that this is just going to be an ongoing thing for me with these fingers not working. He seemed to, I think his story was that his upper arm was more affected with the nerves and the muscle stuff, and he has kind of just learned to work around, his arm functioning with that lack from the outcome of the surgery with it. I don't think any of us maybe can expect that everything is going to be restored perfectly. If it is, wonderful. That's great. But honestly, so much was restored for me that, I wouldn't even question doing it again. I would do it again rather than face what I was facing when the compression was definitely the strongest prior to, going through the surgery. So I just want to give that encouragement. I'm a success story. I will definitely say that. That's not to say that there aren't still some lingering effects of the surgery. Honestly, when you get all the neck muscles and nerves, sliced and diced going through that surgery, and certainly what is done with the vertebrae, I don't think we can expect that we're going to get to a point where we don't feel the effects of that. I'm 2 years out, and I will say that I still do deal with a fair amount of tightness in the muscles in my neck, down to about my shoulder blades. For me, it's more on my right side I have the problem than the left. I definitely have some pain on both sides. But all through this journey for me, my right side has been more of a problem for whatever reason. So, I just think it's going to be part of here's what you deal with after the surgery, but you can still walk. That's how I kind of tend to think about it. With the physical therapy, learned a lot of exercises for the neck stretches. I do try to do them, especially in the morning, as much as I can. Colder weather affects. I live in Pennsylvania, where we're on the onset of autumn and fall now, autumn and winter. So it's the cold temperatures are something that I just probably tend to just wear a heating pad a little bit more. I do, where I have it here. I've recommended this in another video, but this was something that I have found to be super helpful, even in an ongoing way, and just helping the neck tightness. You can get neck pads that are, U-shaped and then will snap together around the front of your neck and just sit right on your shoulders and neck. That is something that I just really highly recommend. That's not going to be the case for right after the surgery. I think maybe for the first 3 weeks or so, I could deal with nothing but ice, and ice was super helpful. But then at that point in the healing journey, it switched, and I definitely went more for heat. I have a few other things in my bags of tricks that I would just recommend that have helped me when I have the neck pain that sort of just gets to be something like you want to do something to help deal with it. If you've gone through physical therapy, you've probably used something called a TENS unit, T-E-N-S unit, where they put little pads on the affected area and sort of just run some electrical current through it. I did find this on Amazon. This is effectively a neck TENS unit. This is not nearly as strong as something you would find in physical therapy because, this is certainly not medical grade by any stretch, but it does help on times when it just kind of helps to release some real muscle tightness on occasion. You just put it around the back of your neck, and these metal pads are what any sort of the electrical current with this would go through. It's not very strong, but it is strong enough to just kind of, you can feel a difference. And I feel like my muscles respond and relax a little bit when I go through a couple rounds of wearing this. All you need to do is go to Amazon and search neck TENS unit, and you'll have several choices. They're all very similar. I would say a lacrosse ball is a big part of my repertoire to help with things. It is, it's pretty stiff, certainly a good bit more stiff than a tennis ball, but it's good to just kind of roll right over where you have tight muscles. You can do it yourself. You can have somebody else do it for you. And, where things are really just tight and compacted, rolling this over it helps. You can also, of course, have somebody else do it, or you can lean against a wall and just roll the ball up and down where you would have big knots, and especially around my shoulder blades, I get some muscle knots from the tightness, and that helps somewhat too. Finally, you'll notice if you join the Facebook group that it kind of is a holy grail question of what pillow do people use after the surgery? Because, we have some different neck support needs than most people. I have found one that I have really appreciated. I wouldn't have been able to use it till maybe like the 4-month mark or so after the surgery, until my neck healed enough that it could kind of deal with something that was a bit more stiff and more firm support than the average pillow. There's a company called Sutera. I don't remember how I came across them, but they make a pillow that, try to see if I can have you see here, has a sort of a dip in the bottom where your neck would be. It works fine for me for side sleeping, for back sleeping, and this is a very solid area here that just has like a little cavity there where your neck and head can go, and then some extra support under your shoulders with that. I'm not. I don't know that they're medically approved or anything like that, but I can say that I really, really, really benefit from the support of this pillow. I can tell a difference when I'm traveling and don't have that pillow to sleep on. It's just been a real benefit for me, so I just want to make the recommendation to you. I'll put a link to that in the comments as well, but the company name is Sutera, S-U-T-E-R-A. So I just encourage you to check that out. I just want to say in general that going through the surgery, yes, going through the actual surgery itself was hard. It is very painful, and it's a bear to get through, and takes a fair amount of time to get through it. I will just acknowledge again that for real stamina to return after the surgery, it took me maybe like 5 or 6 months until I felt like I was at like a fairly normal energy level for me. So that definitely takes some time. And we'll remind again that my surgeon told me, and then I heard, just from other people that had had the surgery, that for nerves to totally regenerate takes about 18 months. So, I'm 6 months past that point now. So our nerves have gone through a lot with what led up to the surgery and then after the surgery. So it definitely takes some time for things to get to the point where you feel like, is it still going through the healing process? And I could sense that too. And even up until maybe about that point, I was still sensing changes in my hands. with, just some improvements there. I think maybe I'm at the point where they're not going to change a whole lot now. I don't know. It'd be great if they did, but I can certainly live with the way it is. So all this to say, I just want to count myself as a success story, because I think that's important to see when you're facing the emotions that come with having to go through this surgery. So I just want to give you some encouragement in that. If you have questions that you think I might be able to answer, feel free to leave as a comment. I'll either answer here or perhaps shoot you an email privately. And again, I would just encourage you to join that Facebook group just for the communal aspect of just hearing what people are going through. So please have some hope. It's a difficult thing to go through, but I count myself as one who would, yes, I would definitely do it again if the situation presented itself. All right, thanks so much.